On a crisp September morning, the world changed forever. September 11th, 2001, a date etched into the collective memory of humanity. The events of that day ignited a chain reaction that reshaped global politics, security, and society. This is the story of 9/11 and its aftermath.
What were you doing on the day of the terrorist attacks on 9/11?
I was actually renting a power washer to power wash the house.
I was on a cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean.
Well, I remember going to the Capitol. I actually lived in Washington, D.C. for a short time, and you could just walk into the Capitol with no security and just go in. But after 9/11, that was gone. You had to have a reservation, you had to have a congressional approval, and the security became much more.
I think a lot of our civil liberties probably got stepped on a little bit. I think the government used that to take away some of our things that we were accustomed to.
President Bush authorized the use of force against those responsible for the September 11th attacks, leading to Operation Enduring Freedom starting on October 7th, 2001, which targeted the Taliban. The Taliban were defeated by December, but al-Qaeda leaders remained in hiding. Despite efforts to stabilize Afghanistan, violence persisted, with Obama recommitting troops in 2009, killing Osama bin Laden in 2011, and withdrawing troops in 2014.
Well, I think in terms of Afghanistan was kind of the same as Iraq. I had a very bad premonition that when the Iraq War started, that we went in, and that this was going to lead to much more difficulty and the stability in the region. And Afghanistan has always been a bad spot for foreign wars. I mean, you had the English went into Afghanistan and they failed. The Russians went into Afghanistan and they failed. And the United States went into Afghanistan and we failed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main cause was we supplied the freedom fighters, if you call them that, against the Russians. And then they wanted their own independence, and they used that against us.
In 2010, a Tunesinian street vendor's self-immolation in protest against the government sparked a political and civil uprising across the Middle East. Protests occurred in 17 countries, resulting in leadership changes in 4 and leading to political, social, and economic gains for some. However, the uprisings also caused severe violence, displacement of thousands, and increased repression, with protests generally focused on dignity, human rights, and religious tensions. This was the Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring came about for the people were kind of tired of their dictatorial regimes that were in power. So they basically came up and said, no, we don't want this anymore. We want more freedom. Looking back at it now, that's almost 20 years later, I don't think it was very successful. Most of the governments are the same as they were before. And people did find a new freedom to a point, and then now those have been taken away.
The U.S. military used force in Afghanistan and Iraq and gathered intelligence to foil terrorist plots by monitoring communications and activities. Internationally, the U.S. collaborated with other nations through alliances and negotiations while also cutting off terrorist funding by freezing assets and imposing sanctions. Domestically, security measures and laws were strengthened, though controversies arose over human rights and the effectiveness of these strategies, leading to evolving counterterrorism methods.
Well, unfortunately, there will be radical people in this world no matter what. And I say radical just because they have differences than we have. You know, we try to accept everyone's differences, but there are some radicals that don't accept differences from other people around the world, and they try to eliminate those people. It's not right, but there's no way we'll ever stop it. You know, you could send billions and trillions of dollars, and there will always be a new radical born somewhere.
U.S. forces invaded Iraq to eliminate weapons of mass destruction, or WMD, and to end Saddam Hussein's rule, but no significant WMDs were found and a violent insurgency emerged, which led to a loss of public support. Despite a rapid military victory and the collapse of Saddam's regime, coalition forces faced ongoing resistance from loyalists and worsening ethnic and religious divides. The occupation led to regional instability and the rise of insurgent groups like ISIS, with Iraqis eventually taking over the governments. Following the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. launched an invasion of Afghanistan on October 7, 2001, to combat the Taliban and al-Qaeda. In March 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq, citing the presence of al-Qaeda terrorists and suspected weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein was captured and executed in December 2003, and Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. forces on May 2, 2011. Despite these efforts, extremist groups expanded globally, leading to persistent security threats and challenges in balancing security with civil liberties, which continue to the present day.
I don't believe there'll ever be an end to terrorism, but we have to keep it in check as much as possible. And I think that more of the countries in Europe and Asia need to help out. I mean, they have probably more power than they believe, and they shouldn't wait for the U.S. to be the big man with the big stick all the time.